want to thank all our members for being here today. We do have some missing, and we do not have a quorum, but we're going to go ahead and meet. We've just got to get some things started. This will be our second meeting. So we'll, has everybody got a copy of the agenda? Brian needs a copy. Do you have another one? For all those that weren't at our last meeting, I was strong-armed into taking this position. So I was elected chairman. Our vice chairman is Cindy Slater, and she's not here. And then Robert and his staff will be our secretary and assist in our group in facilitating all the things that we need to carry out this task. I was on the committee several years ago, and I have this large binder that has helped me tremendously. I've started a new binder, and Robert's staff and Robert are working on a binder for everyone so you can keep up with all the things that will help us through this process, along with agenda items, minutes, calendars, the whole thing. So we'll be getting that to you. It's almost put together. I've assembled a partial one to go by, so we'll have that for you next time. So with that, we'll just take a look at our agenda. Do we have minutes from last time?
Not yet. We're working on getting those, so we'll vote on both, that set at our next meeting.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. Our second item is old business, and there was no old business. It was just basically structuring and getting things together, voting on what I described earlier. So item 3 would be new business, and that is the review of the urban growth boundary request. And what the city of Cleveland has been working on some things for the last, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, actively doing a lot of that. No one has that information. Do you have something, Robert, you can talk to us about?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I've got a proposal map, which I'll share, and then we can talk over some of the functionality of how this process works.
That microphone will not be in the audio, just for the live stream.
Yes, Ellen, it is, just everybody else. But what I was saying is I do have a map, and I'll go over some of the requirements based on the law of how we come to the conclusion that this is the map we're presenting and how we service it if eventual annexation by owner request occurs.
Okay, so do you have copies of the map that you can pass out to everyone here?
Talk right in. So it's not very directional. That one. It is. That's only if you're speaking.
Okay, does everybody in here hear me? Yes. Okay, thank you. So as I previously stated, the map in front of you is the city's proposal for the updated urban growth boundary. The county, the city, and the city of Charleston, all the legislative bodies will review what this committee ends up with and we're starting that process with the proposal that's in front of you. One of the keys to the law which governs the growth boundary process is that to make changes, you must first put together the criteria by which you're going to service those areas if they were to be in the city. It's important to remember this isn't about annexation. This is about planning for future growth in the county and the cities. So it's more of a tool about planning principles and being prepared than anything else. It's not about annexation or anything of that nature. So one of the things my staff is working on is a department level review of how we will service that over a 25 to 30-year period and what those requirements are. That document should be prepared and finalized within the next month to 2 months. But at this point, we wanted to begin the process of talking about the boundary itself, which our proposal is before you. Charleston is also has the ability to submit a proposal for their growth boundary to this committee, and then the county will look at areas of rural versus kind of preserved areas that they would like to designate one way or the other, and they can come forth with those criteria. So I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
So now, on our first meeting, we had kind of talked about, I thought we decided Dalton Pike was be hard to get the sewer down, but it's going down there.
So
Pretty good
much of
ways.
the eastern and southern edge of the boundary is exactly the same as the existing boundary today. We didn't, and there's a lot of development in that area that was done outside the city limits years ago for septic. And so it was included in because it's already considered urban by the federal government. It's an urban area by itself, South Cleveland. And so it's stayed within that boundary. We didn't make adjustments in that area.
Can I ask the committee, does everybody understand the different shadings and the different lines, the red lines, the blue lines, the blue shading, what all that means? Okay, everybody's familiar. Adam, everybody's familiar with what that entails. Okay.
What is the difference between urban growth, light blue, and
So the light blue is the existing as we sit today. The proposed line would be the red line.
red line?
that-
Okay.
So the light blue is existing right now from our last agreement.
One thing that I found of interest, Robert, if you could explain it once again, the advantage that between the city and county, current to have a discussion. We're talking about urban growth, but once we get past urban growth, if someone wants to request annexation, the advantage to being in an urban growth for the city and the county, I found that very interesting. Could you explain that one more time, what that does?
Yes, sir. One of the components that we look at is properties that are contiguous to the city and inside the urban growth boundary go through a process by which, if an owner does request annexation from the city, we annex that property. We do a plan of service. If it's not contiguous, we send that plan of service to the county commission, which is what our desired process is, so that the county commission can have a say and review, in a sense. They review that the level of service that we can provide. So if it's not inside the urban growth boundary, there's still a process for annexation, but that is done by a vote of the property owner during an election cycle. So that process kind of takes out any cooperation that we have, and that's why we're looking at opportunities to work with our county partners and the city of Charleston through the annexation process. when it is obviously requested by property owners.
Does anybody have any question about that process?
No,
The-
but this map is, you talked about your consultant at Cleveland Utilities. This map is pretty close to that one that you guys did.
Yes, that is correct. Jonathan, I'll bring that up just in 1 second. But, talk a little bit about where we are on annexation, non-contiguous annexation, and the challenges we have now.
There's different processes as I laid out for annexation, and when we do a plan of service, as I mentioned, if it's contiguous to the existing city limits, that plan of service is reviewed by the city council. If it's not, which we've seen cases where that's occurred, both the city and the county would have the ability to review it and offer input and things like that. So I think what you're asking is this allows more cooperation through that process versus a restricted urban growth boundary that really relies on a different set of principles that we follow.
Well, currently, some of the requests we're getting are not in the urban growth boundary, but
That's
they're
correct.
still asking for annexation.
That's correct.
And that's what so any homeowner can request annexation, whether they're in the urban growth boundary or not. Is that correct?
That's correct. They can, and there's a process by which each can occur, but the urban growth boundary and it being within it makes that a much more streamlined and cooperative agreement as opposed to some decision that's kind of follows a separate path. Property owners have property rights, and that's what this is about, and so that's what we're talking about. But when it comes to planning and the level of service, and this public chapter 1101 states that the entity that provides the service must be able to provide an urban level of service. And currently, the only entity that really provides that in this county is the city of Cleveland. That's why we look at this. We talk about the continued economic growth that we've seen, whether it's industrial, commercial, residential. They all tie together, and we've got to facilitate that in strategic locations, and that's what this is about. When you look at where those services can be provided, from a utility standpoint, police, fire, schools, those are the kind of things we're looking at. And that's kind of how this map came to be.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Does anybody have any more questions? Yes, Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Farnell, I've been asked a couple of different times about why we're doing this process. Is there a state statute or something that tells us we're supposed to have an urban growth boundary and it's supposed to be updated every certain number of years?
Yeah, it's actually supposed to be updated on a 10-year cycle. It hasn't been updated in 15. It's based on a 20 to 25-year projection of growth. When we look at that, the projections in 2009 are vastly different than the projections of 2024. We've got an industry inside the county saying they're going to add over 9,000 employees, and we start looking at where those people are going to live in our community. We invited the industry in and said we could supply the level of service that they require. And so when we look at that as a planning staff, from a professional standpoint, we look at the laws that the state has put forth, where we agree upon a growth boundary, and outside of that area is where the agricultural lands and forest lands can be better protected. But in the urban growth boundary, we can plan for that level of service that these people are going to require if they move here.
Thank you, Mr. Farnell. I'm thankful that Mayor Davis initiated this process since we're 5 years behind schedule.
Yes, sir.
Just to verify, if we don't do this, then the governor appoints a committee of 3 judges who do it anyway.
So when we open the committee, and if this body comes to an agreement and they send that agreement out to each legislative body for a up or down vote, County Commission, the City of Charleston, the City of Cleveland, each legislative body will vote on that. If they are all not approved by those bodies, it comes back to you all with the reasons why they didn't approve it, and we see if we can come to an agreement in this form, and then it goes back to the legislative bodies. If at that time they don't approve it, it does go to the state, and the state makes that decision for us without any more input. They look at the facts of what we're saying, what Charleston's saying, what everybody says, and then they make I think it's a body of 3 or 4 people in Nashville that will make that decision.
Okay, any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, would it be possible for committee members to get an electronic copy of this map? And would it be, I'm assuming it's a PDF, so we could zoom into street level? Is that right?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And once we come to and have discussions back and forth, we will make a street level map that will be cut up into zoomed in sections, in a sense, in a booklet form.
Okay, any other questions?
Is this map for public consumption yet, or no?
This map was approved by resolution by the city council for the city of Cleveland as our recommended proposal. In conjunction with the requirements of the state law, we had 2 public hearings, and our legislative body put this forth for y'all's review.
Robert, just refresh my memory. When did the concept of an urban growth boundary become state law? Do you remember?
1998.
98.
Yes, sir.
So we're 26 years into it.
Yes, sir. And several counties and cities have gone through this process over the past few years across the state, because the whole state itself is seeing quite a bit of growth in all sectors. And so this process has been reviewed all over.
Any other questions for Robert? I see, Robert, you have some drawings there, maps, and you have extra copies.
I do. That map is the one you all have, and I do have a few extra copies, and as well, I do have a digital form, which I can email out to the committee.
Okay, on what Jonathan mentioned, Cleveland Utility, this was brought up at our last meeting, and I was able to respond to it a little bit, but I can respond a little bit more. Cleveland Utilities is responsible for the sanitary sewer system in our area, and we've been working diligently, over the last probably 3 or 4 years with the growth that we've been having and the strategic growth just all over different requests. So we engaged our consultant, LJA Consulting, that assisting us with our sewer rehabilitation to help us prepare a sewer master plan. So we have a proposed 23-24 sewer master plan that is it's still being developed, and I got an update about 2 weeks ago from the consultant of what they're going through from population projections. But we have basically put together a boundary for the future. It looks out 30, 40 years. It's nothing that is happening tomorrow. It's a large area. It's kind of similar to this location here, but as engineers, and I'm an engineer, we can plan for areas. And so we needed to find an area, and we feel comfortable. Our staff has put together that area, and our consultant has been busy working on that particular layout. It figures in topographical areas. We predominantly are a gravity sewer system, and so we've taken into account a lot of topographical high points, low points, all those things, and then guiding the wastewater flow to our plant, which is located at the Wassee River. So I have a drawing as well that outlines that. It's governed by a lot of different things, but topographical. It also shows sewer I mean, water, service areas, which is Cleveland, Eastside, Ocoee, Savannah Valley, and Charleston Utility District. So there are a lot of things that kind of guide what and where and how we do what we do. But we've got a nice drawing for the committee if they so choose to glance at it, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. But it is somewhat similar. We used a lot of topographical. I don't know that the city used topographical. They probably use streets, which is perfectly fine. But it has been a challenge, like I said, for the last 3 to 4 or 5 years to plan for future sewer to serve these areas, and so that has been prepared, and we're still a work in progress. But I did bring it today because it was kind of mentioned at our last meeting. So I have that if some folks would like to look at that, and I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the sewer. But the sewer is really challenging in servicing growth in these areas in many respects. But I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding that if there's any.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a question, just more of a comment. I know we discussed this at the first meeting, and it's been briefly mentioned tonight, but I think there will be a lot of folks that either are watching this video now or will go back and watch it after the fact. And I think it's important that we say again that the decisions and the recommendation of this committee, and ultimately whatever's decided or not decided or voted and approved or not approved by the different legislative bodies, does nothing to, this is not a discussion about annexation. Now, obviously, what the end result may become certainly impacts potential annexation down the road. But there have been a lot of questions, at least at the county, that have come in, concerns from constituents and others about what this committee's purpose is, what the outcome of the decisions and recommendations from this committee will be. And so I think it's really key that we, number one, understand as a committee, but that we're articulating that to the public, that this is not a discussion about annexation. We're not deciding anything to do with an annexation. Those decisions will still be made by property owners. We're fortunate that several years ago, forced annexation was outlawed in the state of Tennessee. And so now annexation of any kind, inside the growth boundary, outside the growth boundary, does not take place without the property owner making that request of the city or the municipality. And so nobody's coming for your land. You will have a say as a property owner, regardless of where these lines are drawn. And just because a line is drawn does not mean that it impacts you or your property at all. So that's not a comment for or against annexation. It's just a clarification about what this committee and what the growth boundary ultimately is about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Any other comments? Any other questions, discussions?
I'll just make a comment from a staff perspective, since I'm acting as working with my staff to staff this body, and I'll reach out to those who aren't here. But if there are specific questions, comments, or thoughts about our proposal, and then if Charleston comes forth with one, or if the county has some thoughts on how they want to look at their areas, I will keep all those organized together if they can be shared with me. That's all I'm saying. And then present those back to the committee from a staff perspective. That's all I'm saying. It was mentioned that we're working on some notebooks, and all the documentation we talk about from each entity will be put into that notebook, and then we'll digitize it at the end. So just some feedback from a staff perspective to help us stay organized.
Okay, Um, so there's no more, I know we just got the map, and I guess we'll need to look at it, and the rest of the committee needs to do that as well. So, I guess before we go to setting another meeting, does anyone have any other comments, questions, or anything?
I just would like to see your sewer map as compared to this map and where there's areas of difference, 'cause I just don't see it being, what do I want to look for? Financially prudent to chase areas that are gonna be not financially beneficial to have to service. Let's see where those areas cross over to where it's not useful. And
Okay.
that'd be the only other thing. 'Cause I mean, if we're gonna pick certain area that we cannot get sewer to under any circumstance at a reasonable value, hold the line back around that.
Sure. What I brought today is I could lay it out on that table. It's a large map. It is not quite as small as what Robert brought, but we could certainly make a 8.5, 11 by 17. Is that, yeah, okay. So I could reduce it down. Yeah, we certainly can do that, and I could get that to Robert, and we could get that distributed, but it is available in a larger format where you can see things. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have those. We can do that, if you'd like.
And then the last comment is, we have sold out of all the property that was off of APD 40 from an industrial standpoint. Those lots are sold. We're getting woefully thin at Spring Branch. I think we have 4 lots left that are all 7 acres or under. I think we can put 2 of those together to get a slightly bigger contiguous. So one aspect from being the chamber representative is starting to add in the concept of where the next industrial park or industrial land's gonna come, and getting services to it and everything else would be beneficial, obviously.
And to your point regarding the map and the limits of the sewer and things like that, what the city's proposals is more constrained than what the full sewer serviceability map is at this point. We're actually within that boundary, and exactly the same in some spots, and then pulled back in a few others. So.
Okay. If y'all would look, do you have a calendar? Robert, do you have a proposed date for another meeting?
I've thought about it because I learned that the county school board meets on this date and time, so we need to adjust their availability. What about the third Thursdays? That's of every month. So that in October it would be the 17th. Thursday seems like typically a generally good day to do it. I don't know if that works with everybody, but if there's an entity out there that does meet at that time,
I think you're just gonna have to pick a date,
can go with it.
go with it.
Yeah. So October 17th is where I landed based on looking at everybody's schedule and trying to put y'all all together in the same place.
I know we've had these meetings at 4 o'clock, but would it be at all beneficial to look at a daytime meeting time instead? Is that,
If you'd like, I can email the membership in total and see if I get some feedback on that, whether a day, a time of day is better than the other. Yeah.
let us know what Kim says.
I'd like to try to stick with the date and then see if we can nail down the time, because that helps me and my staff get ready and organized. If I can just sit on it and go, I got plenty to do. So
17th works fine for me.
4
So-
o'clock?
4 o'clock.
and then maybe if we get more attendance, we can talk about the time of day question if they decide.
I just didn't know if that would be helpful or not.
Does, I know last time we met at 5:30, 10 years ago or so. I don't know if that, I can make any time, but if we could poll the group if there's an issue with time, would earlier be better for everybody, or do you like the 4 o'clock? Yeah, check with the folks that haven't been able to make it. See if it's dates, times, what might make it easier on them. Okay, so we'll meet. It looks like October 17th. Got that, and we'll confirm a time and confirm the date.
Here?
Yeah, location will be here. Is there anything else from anyone? Okay. If someone would like to look at the map, they can. Do we need to do that before we adjourn, or? Okay. All right, we'll do that. Okay. Try to make it easy as possible. Okay. Is anyone visiting today from the audience like to say anything? Okay.
Kind of interesting looking at my name right there. As I was telling them, I talked to the county attorney, Crystal Freiberg, and keep the state out of this equation. I think that we all agree on, Charleston, us, and city. It is an acceptable recommendation from the committee to keep the boundaries right where they're at. So if we want to keep the state out of it, that is acceptable. I just want to make that very clear, according to the county attorney. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other? Okay, Matt?
Mr. Chairman, I was just wondering if there's a site where the general public could use those two maps, and if there are, those to us, or
Could we get anyone interested, if you want to give us your email address or something like that? Okay, if you would sign, there is a sign-in sheet. If you would give us your name and email address, we'll get you some information. Okay? Anything else? Okay. If nothing else, do I have a motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor?